Today we come together to learn Masechta Nazir Daf Gimel, and just to discuss the Mishnah and some of the words in the Mishnah. The Mishnah yesterday said, "Ehei no'eh." If a person says, "I want to be beautiful," so the Mishnah said he is a Nazir. He is a Nazir. What does that mean? I want to be beautiful. So we say that's a yad, and that he means to me, I want to be beautiful through my hair, Let's see what this means. Hey Noah. He says, I want to be beautiful. The Mishnah, we're about 7 lines from Daf Beis and Beis. Person says, hey Noah, I want to be beautiful. So he becomes automatically a Nazir. So the Gemara says, presumably, we thinking that he means to say, I want to be beautiful through my hair, through my growing of my hair. So the Gemara says, "V'dilma eno lefona b'mitzvahs." How do you know definitively that he means to become a Nazir? Maybe he means to say, "I want to become beautiful through my doing mitzvahs in a beautiful way." Kidetanya, we learned in the Brisa, "Zeh keli b'anveyu." This is my God, and I will beautify him. And no lefona b'mitzvahs. I'll beautify before him through doing mitzvahs in a beautiful way. That means, as a lefon of sukkah, I will make for God a beautiful sukkah. I'm going to make for God a lulav na, a beautiful lulav. I'll purchase or acquire a beautiful na, a beautiful lulav, tzitzis na, a beautiful tzitzis. Echtev lefonav, I'm going to write before God Sefer Torah na, a beautiful Sefer Torah, ve'achrechenu kishirayim b'shirayim noim, with beautiful silk. In other words, how does he know? How do we know definitively if someone just says, I want to be beautiful, or I want to be a beautiful person? How do you know he means to say is that I want to be do something beautiful and become a Nazir? Maybe he means to say, I want to be beautiful by doing mitzvahs in a beautiful way. Shmuel answered, that Mishnah is discussing that he's grabbing a hold of his hair. So he's indicating how he wants to be beautiful through his hair. And he's saying, I want to be beautiful by doing a mitzvah with my hair. What mitzvah do you do with your hair? That's becoming a Nazir. So the Gemara, up until this point, understands that becoming a Nazir is a beautiful thing. So the Gemara questions that and challenges that. Nizira milsa da'avera. Becoming a Nazir and restricting yourself on wine and taking a haircut and going to funerals is something that we would consider to be an avera. Restricting yourself is doing an avera. We tell him that you're doing something beautiful. So the Gemara says, and yes, it is beautiful. The fila the Rableza HaKapar. Even I know what you're referring to. This Rableza HaKapar, who's famous of saying that a Nazir is considered to be a sinner, because he's restricting himself, and God does not want us to restrict themselves when he didn't make the restriction. So Rabbi Lezer HaKapeh, he always holds that Nazir is a chayte, that Nazir, to become a Nazir, you're basically called a sinner. So when did he mean to say that? Is Hanimili, this was only said Gabi Nazir Tameh, by somebody who is a Nazir, who is Tameh. In other words, he already counted, let's say, 15 days of Naziris, and then he became Tameh. So we know that the 15 days that he counted is disqualified, and he has to bring birds as a carbon, go to the mikveh, whatever he did, and he has to bring birds as a carbon and a carbon ashram, and then restart the count again. So it's a frustrating thing, because he thought he's going to be a Nazir for 30 days, and now he's going to be a Nazir for 45 days. And therefore, so what are we concerned? And so why is maybe he's going to regret ever becoming a Nazir? And what's going to happen is that he maybe is going to transgress his Naziris and not tell anybody about it. And he'll tell everybody, oh, I finished my Naziris, because he just doesn't want to start again in the second round. And therefore, he's going to bring the carbonis upon completion of a complete Naziris to show everybody he finished. And really, that's bringing Chulin Ba'azara, because he's not supposed to bring this carbon. So let's read it inside. The Hanimili, when did Rab Loza HaKappa call a Nazir a sinner? Is Gabi Nazir Tameh, a Nazir that is Tameh. The Ayah Boya de Mistar, because he's disqualified and he has to recount again. The Torah said that when you become Tameh as a Nazir, all the days that you counted up until the point you became Tameh, it falls away and it's not counted. Ki Tameh Nizra, because your Naziris became Tameh. and therefore you have to restart the count. So therefore, a person who faces such a situation, that person's called a sinner. Because Hasim hu dilma ase lime'avar al niziruse, he's going to transgress his naziris, but he's not going to want to start again because he knows how hard it is. Carbonis you have to bring to restart the process again. So he's going to be transgress his naziris and not tell anybody about it, and he's going to masquerade as if he complete a complete naziris. And therefore, he's going to bring the carbonis, and v'nimtzu, as Rashi, the Ravan says, mevi'im chulin la'azara. He brought chulin to the azara. These are not real carbonis because he didn't complete the naziris. That person, according to Rabbi Elazar Kaper, is considered to be a chayta. Aval nazir toher, but a person who completes it, gets it right on the first time, a nazir who's toher lav chayta karibe. He's not considered a sinner. And notice the language. He's not considered a sinner, but it's not a great thing to do because we don't want you to have restrictions upon yourself. But to be called a sinner, not yet, because there are reasons that a person wants to become a nazir is because he felt he's being tempted to sin, so he wants to go to the extreme other direction. So because of that, that nazir tar is not considered a sinner. So getting back to our Mishnah, person says, I want to be beautiful, do something beautiful for God. So, and he's holding his hair. So we assume that he wants to become a nazir, and becoming a nazir, and if you do it right the first time, you're considered as if you did a beautiful thing. So therefore, if someone says, hey, no, I want to be beautiful, he is considered to be a nazir, and he has to keep naziris. A person says, Hareini kazeh, I want to be like this. Now, the Gemara understood that he's holding his hair, and he's saying, the Mishnah says, if you say, Hareini kazeh, I want to be like this, you're a nazir. What does this mean? If I want to be like here, Hareini kazeh, ni nami t'tafes b'sa'ara, granted that he's holding on to his hair, Hareini kazeh, Omar, but he said, I want to be like this. Like Omar, let's leave that one out. But Hareini kazeh, Omar, he says, I want to be like this. What does it mean? I want to be like here? It means nothing. Amar Shmuel says here the Mishnah is referring to something different. He's talking about that he's saying, I want to be like that person. Like that person, and Nazir passed in front of him, and he says, I want to be like that. He didn't say I want to be a Nazir, he says I want to be like that. So that is considered like a yad, and we see that what he means to say is he wants to be a Nazir, and therefore he is obligated to keep the Naziris. Then the Mishnah says there's some things that are not a yad because you're actually saying, I want to be a Nazir. But you didn't say the word Nazir. So how is that? If a person says, Hareini misalsal, he says, I want to twirl. So presumably he means he wants to grow hair and he wants to do a mitzvah which will allow him to twirl his hair. So that implies that he wants to be a Nazir. So the Gemara says, Mimai, how do you know the Hadain Silsa Sara? How do you know that this kind of twirling means he's twirling his hair? Well, the word silsil is usually associated with hair. There was this maidservant of Rebbe who had a great vocabulary, and she said, this maid said to Lahu Gavra, this person, Ad Mosai Ata Misalsel Besarcha. How long will you be twining your hair? So usually silsil is something twirling. Usually it's associated with a hair. So I understand that that's what you think he means when someone says Hareini misalsa. He means he wants to be a nazir. Ema, let us say Torah. Maybe he wants to say, I want to learn Torah. I want to turn and twirl in Torah, and go deeper and deeper. Diksiv, because the pasuk in reference to Torah says salsala, salsaleha, twirl in it. Usra memeka, and it will raise you up. So let us say that that's what he meant. So when a person says Hareini misalsa, how do you know definitively he meant he wants to become a nazir? Answers the Gemara, Amar Shmuel. Shmuel says, he's holding on to his hair. If he's holding on to his hair, it's obviously he means that I want to twirl something associated with hair. And therefore, he's implying that he wants to grow his hair long for a mitzvah and then be able to twirl it. And for that reason, we say when a person says Hareini misalsel, he's automatically, definitively meaning that he wants to become a nazir. Then the Mishnah says, if you say Hareini mechalkel, I want to grow. Now, I want to grow. Mechalka means to support a lot of here. I want to own a lot of here. So the Gemara understood if he just said Hareini Mechalkel, I want to own something and support something. How do you know he means here? Mimai, how do you know that they kilkel sa'arehu? How do you know that he means he wants to support here and he wants to grow his hair? And how do you know the word kilkel is associated with the word here? Now we learned in the Mishnah Sid. Lime. Lime was used to smear into your hair to hold it in place. So the Mishnah is discussing how much lime do you have to carry out on Shabbos to be considered a significant amount that you transgress the Aveira of carrying on Shabbos. So how much lime do you have to hold in your pocket, so to speak, and carry to be liable for sinning on Shabbos by carrying? So the Gemara says, Rabbi Yehuda, the Mishnah says, Rabbi Yehuda mikadei lost it kilkal, enough lime to support to line kilkal. Kilkal is hair. Rav says bas tzida, underneath the temples. So we see that the word kilkel is associated with here. So I'll grant you that when a person says Hareini Mechalkel, it's possible he means that he wants to grow his hair. But it could also mean Ema Mizan Aniya. Maybe he wants to be the supporter of a yeshiva, supporter of poor people. Because we also find the word kilkel has to do with financial support. The pasuk says, Yosef supported his brothers and fathers who were poor people when they came to Mitzrayim because of the hunger. So how do you know when a person says straight out Hareini Mechalkel, he means to be a Nazir? Answers the Gemara. Shmuel says, you have to also say over here that he's holding on to his hair. If he's holding on to his hair, so it's an indication that the kilkel, in the context that he's using it, is referring to hair. Then the Mishnah says, if a person says, Harei alai, I take it upon myself, l'shaleach, to grow pera here. Now, pera is an unusual word for the word hair, but pera means locks or something like that. Hair locks. So harezin nazir, that means you become a nazir. So l'shaleach means he wants to grow here. So again, the Gemara asks that question. B'mai, how do you know the hadein shiluach, that when he says shiluach, the ribuya, who he wants to grow the hair, because definitely it has to do with hair, because pera means hair, but how do you know the word shiluach means hair? The ksiv, because the word shiluach means hair, means grow. The pasuk says, shalachayach pardes remoinim. Your long hair is like a garden of pomegranates. That's a pasuk in Shira Shira. But there in the context, the word shiluach, shalachayach, means growing. So Ema, that possibly Harei Elai Shalei Pera means he wants to grow his hair, but it could also mean I want to remove my hair. Ema, maybe let us say Midi Daburi, maybe he means to remove his hair. The ksiv, because the pasuk says V'Shaleach Mayim Al Pnei Chutzos. He somebody who removes water Al Pnei Chutzos, on where its location is. He's just removing the water and bringing it to another place. And there, the context of shaleach means he wants to remove the water. So how do you know the shaleach, when a person says harei alai l'shaleach pari, means he wants to grow here? Maybe the word shaleach could be a type of word that doesn't mean grow. It means just the opposite, to cut hair. And there are words in Hebrew which both mean both mean what it is. It can mean the opposite. In English also, you have yeshiva week, which means it could either mean you're learning in yeshiva that week, or it means yeshiva week is the yeshivas are off that week. Anyway, so what does the shaleach mean? Does it mean to grow, or does he mean to remove hair? So the Gemara says he certainly means to grow, because since he connected it with the word pera, and pera is the word used by Nazir, so la shaleach pera means to grow hair. Because our Tana of our Mishnah assumed he meant grow hair, because pera yal, if he learns out Gzeira Shava, pera. Ksiv hacha, it says over here. Chodesh Yagadol pera. It says by Nazir he should be holy. Gadel obviously means to grow. Pera, his hair locks. Uksiv hasam, and it says Gabi Kohen Hedyan, by a Kohen Hedyan who's supposed to take a haircut every 30 days. Upera lo yishalechu. He should not let his pera grow. That's presumably what it means. That his hair cannot grow beyond 30 days. So in the word which connects to pera, connects also to the word yishalechu. So we try to say that maybe shaleach could mean remove. By Yishlach Yaakov, he sent messengers, which is moving from place to place. But shaleach, when it's associated with the word para, could definitely has to do with hair growing, and that's why when a person says harei alai l'shaleach para, he means to grow hair. If you want, I can say that even the shaleach, also, if you could also squeeze it out that the word shaleach doesn't mean to remove; it actually means to grow. And hai shaleach mayim, the pasuk that says shaleach mayim nami ribura hu, that means also to grow, because the pasuk says the Hagram of Yosef, Rabbi Yosef translated it, the kadmashkin le'maya lepera, when you water the fruits, v'rabi, and it grows. So because of that, when you water the fruit, it grows. So the v'shaleach mayim can also mean growing. It's causing, you're bringing water from one place to where the fruit are, and you're watering the fruit so that it grows. So v'shaleach also is associated, even in that pasuk that you brought of v'shaleach mayim, that also pasuk associates the word shaleach means to grow. So most of the time, shaleach means to grow. And therefore, if a person says harei alai l'shaleach para, he means to grow. So now the Gemara continues and discusses the other part of the Mishnah. The Mishnah says, if a person says harei alai tziparin, I want to take upon myself to bring birds. Now, a Nazir does not bring birds as a carbon unless he became tameh. You become tameh, you have to bring two birds, echad l'oila v'echad l'chatas, one for an oila, one for a chatas, and an arsham. But if a person says, I want to take on the responsibility of bringing birds, Rab Meir says the odd thing, if a person just says those words, he becomes a Nazir. Rab Meir, I'm a Nazir. So the Gemara right away asks, my time with the Rab Meir, what does it mean? Why should somebody say, I'm taking on the responsibility of birds? He means that he wants to become a Nazir. Where do you see it? Amar Shlakish, Rab Shlakish says, a teretz, which seems a little odd at first, but the Gemara is going to explain it in a moment. When a person says harei alai tziparim, he doesn't mean the words, I want to bring on birds. I want to bring on the word that is associated to the word birds. And in the pasuk associates the word here to the word birds. So basically you're saying, I want to take upon myself to grow my hair. Amar Shlakish, tziparim smuchim l'seyar, kibul olav. He accepted upon himself the tziparim, the birds that are near the word here. That's what he accepted upon himself. Because the pasuk says, Adi sa'are kinishrin rava, that your hair should grow like eagle feathers, v'tifrohi, and your fingernails, kitziparim, like a bird's claw. So we see that the tziparim, the word bird, is associated and nearby the word hair. So when a person said harei alai tziparim, he means I want to do something with my hair, and because of that, we assume he wants to become a nazir. And Reb Meir holds matfis inish b'mididis michle. A person associates something which is nearby it, and when he doesn't necessarily say the word that he meant, he will say the word that's right nearby it in a pasuk. And that's what he meant. He meant to say, harei alai, the responsibility of doing something with my hair. That's what Rameir holds. Comes along Rabbanan. Rabbanan hold, we go to Gimel Amud Beis, loy matvis inish b'midid dis mechle. A person doesn't associate this, something that's near it. We don't want to say that he meant to say, I'm going to grow my hair, unless he says it clearly. Now, that's what Rabbanan are going to hold. Now, Rabbanan seem to make more sense, and also, I mean, it's very hard to say that the word harei alai tziparin, he's referring to that pasuk in the Nil that associates the word birds with hair. I mean, how many times does the Tanakh say the word birds? So the Gemara is going to point out that even according to Rish Lakish's understanding over here is in a moment that it must be that there's a Nazir walking in front of him. And therefore, he could have said, I want to have hair like this Nazir. And instead, he said, I want to have birds. So Rabbi Rish Lakish said that Reb Meir understood what he meant to say is, he wants to have the word that is associated to the word birds in that pasuk in Daniel. I guess they knew Tanakh very well, and that's what he meant. So he's accepting himself something to do with hair, because there's a Nazir walking in front of him. And Rabbanan says, yes, there's a Nazir walking in front of him, but still, unless he said, I want to grow my hair, we don't, what he said is not expressive enough to determine that he meant to become a Nazir. That's the way Resh Lakish explained the machlokes. Rabbi Yochanan explained the machlokes to kuli alman loy matras. Nobody will associate words in a pasuk and say that he means to the other word in the pasuk. So then we have to explain Rab Meir. Again, we're going to learn that, like the Gemara is going to say in a moment, that there's another walking in front of him. But Rab Meir said, the reason is the chayshin and shemet tzipari nazir tamei kibel alav. Maybe he accepted upon himself to bring a Nazir's tamei, the birds of a Nazir tamei. In other words, he wants to bring himself into a situation where he possibly will be required to bring birds. And if the only way that's possible is if he's accepting upon himself a Nazir, where there's a good chance he may become tamei, and therefore he'll have to bring birds. So that's what Rab Meir understood what he meant. So that's why Rab Meir said that he becomes a Nazir. So the Gemara says, Michte, let us see, Kaishinin Kamar. We're only concerned that's what he meant. But if I can say that he meant something else, how would you definitively decide that he's a Nazir? Maybe he accepted it upon himself to bring birds as a donation to the Beis HaMikdash, to bring a carbon oil as a donation. How do you know he definitively is referring to a Nazir? Again, we're going to learn that there was a Nazir passing in front of him. So the first the Gemara says, in Cain, let him say, Are Olai Cain. Let him, if he wanted to make a donation to the Beis HaMikdash, he would have said, Hare Olai Cain. I want to bring the birds that are in a nest. That's a more of a usual word that's referring to birds that you bring as a karbonis. Like there's a whole masechta called kinim. So fine, but bedilma. So the Gemara says, but even if you just said birds and there's nothing in front of you to indicate that you mean to be a nazir, why would Rab Meir say you're thinking nazir? Hare alai tzipari mitzaira kama. Maybe he said, I want to bring upon myself to bring the birds of a mitzaira. Maybe that's what he meant. I'm going to responsibility that if I find a Mitzara who's responsible, who's getting healed, and he's coming out of being a Mitzara, and he has to bring birds to do something with birds, so I'll pay for those birds, and that's what he meant to say. Answers the Gemara, and this is a question according to Rabbi Yochanan, according to Shlakish. How could Rabbi Meir say definitively that this person means to become a Nazir? Answers the Gemara, I gave you the secret. He was talking about when there's another passing in front of him. Okay, but if there's another passing in front of him, and if he says, I want to take upon the responsibility to bring birds, maybe he's saying, Vidilma Nazir Tameh. Maybe there was a Nazir Tameh passing in front of him. That Nazir Tameh was on his way to buy birds to buy for Karbonis, because he was his Naziris, he became Tameh. And this guy is saying, I'm taking on that responsibility. And he's saying, I'm taking on the responsibility to pay for his carbonates. How do you know definitively that when he says, he means to say that I want to become a Nazir? And says the Gemara, and that's the secret of the whole thing. There's a Nazir Tahar in front of him who's not required to bring birds. And the guy sees a Nazir Tahar, and he says, according to Rab Meir, he says, I want to bring birds. So Rab Meir says, well, there's a Nazir in front of you. You say you want to bring birds. Well, a Nazir doesn't bring birds. Nevertheless, a Nazir Torah doesn't bring birds. You are required to be a Nazir. And we have Rabbi Yochanan, Resh Lakish, and Rabbi Yochanan explaining what's the connection between the tziparim, birds, and a Nazir, according to the way Rab Meir understood it. Resh Lakish explained that since the word tziparim appears near associated a word in the pasuk that associates the word tziparim to hair, birds to hair, so he meant to say is I want to be to that word that appears near the word birds. I guess he had it was easier for him to say the word tziparim than to say the word seyar. So therefore he said, I want to be birds, but he means to say, I want to take on something to do with hair. And therefore Rabbi Meir said, along with the Nazir in front of him, he means to say, I want to be a Nazir. Comes along Rabbi Yochanan and says, that's not the way to explain Rabbi Meir. The way to explain Rabbi Meir is, he's saying upon himself that there's a Nazir walking in front of him. I want to take on the risk of this guy, the same Naziris that this person has, that there's a risk that I might have to bring birds as a Nazir if I become Tameh. So that's how Rabbi Meir understood that he meant to say he wants to become a Nazir with the possibility that he might be forced to bring birds, and therefore he becomes a Nazir. And that's the way Rabbi Yochanan explained Rabbi Meir. So the Gemara asks a question, my benayu, what is the difference between the way Resh Lakish explained Rabbi Meir and the way Rabbi Yochanan explained Rabbi Meir? Answers the Gemara, Ike benayu, there's a big difference. Kegoin, the Omar, if a person said, Siparin hasamuchel l'seir alai, he says, without a Nazir in front of him, he says, I want to be like I want to be like those take upon myself birds that are very close to the word hair in that pasuk in the Nil. So there's no Nazir in front of him. So it's almost as if he's saying Harei alai seir, but he didn't say I'm taking upon myself to do something with my hair. He's saying I want to take on myself the obligation of birds, which are nearby in a pasuk to the word hair. That's what he said. According to Rabbi Yochanan, we don't make associations. If you didn't say I'm taking on the responsibility of hair, Rabbi Meir would not require you to become a Nazir. Even if you said something like this, if a Nazir passes in front of you, yes. If a Nazir is not in front of you, you're not a Nazir. We don't make start twisting your words to say what you possibly meant. According to Shimon Lakish, even though there's no Nazir passing in front of him, but it's so strong association of words that if he says clear out that there's no Nazir in front of him, he says, I want to take upon myself birds like the word birds, which is nearby the word hair in a pasuk. So we say that he means to say also is he wants to do something with his hair. And therefore, Rav Shlakish understanding of Rabbi Meir, even in that case, that person would be a Nazir. So now, Gemara asks one final question, then we'll stop. Is there a mandiyamar? This question is against Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan says that what? That no one makes associations with psukim. Sometimes is there a mandiyamar that doesn't hold? We make associations with psukim. That even there's a brisa that says that you're going to say one word, but we know you mean something else. But Tanya, we learned in a brisa, a person says right hand, I'm not going to eat. Right hand, I'm not going to eat. What is the word right hand, I'm not going to eat? Harei shvua. It's automatically as if he took an oath. Why? Because my tama, he means to say la mishum d'ksiv. He means to say I want to associate the word nearby, which is associated with the word right hand. The pasuk says, "Vayaram yamina usmailei el shmaim." He lifted his right and left hand to heaven. Vayishava, and he swore b'chei ha'olam, in God, who is the source of life to this world. So we see that the word yaminai, right, is very much associated to the word swearing, and therefore the brisa says if a person says, "I Yamin, my right hand, I'm not going to eat," it's as if he's taking an oath, a shavua, that he's not going to eat, even though he didn't say the word shavua. So we do see that you do associations with words, that if you find a word, and the reason why people associate is because maybe they find a certain word difficult to pronounce, so they'll pronounce the easier word in the pasuk, but we know they mean the other word. So therefore, how could Rabbi Yochanan say no one does associations? Amrei, so the yeshiva answered that Rabbi Yochanan is correct. Loi, this is not the question, because the word yaminoi means swearing. It's not that the yaminoi is associated with the word shavua. The word yaminoi, right, is another synonym to mean the word swearing. The word right is also used to mean the word shvua. It's not an associated word, but it's actually an obscure meaning of that word. So when a person says your right hand, I'm not going to eat, he means I swear I'm not going to eat. The Tanya we learned to the Brisa, how do we know if a person says my right hand? He means to take an oath. Shnema, because the pasuk says Nishba Hashem swore biminoi by saying the word right hand. If a person says left hand, that he is also means oath, like they say, raise your right hand or raise your left hand. So how do you know he also means oath? Shnema, pasuk says uvuzroya uzay. In his left hand, Zroya is referring to the left hand of Hashem. Uzay, his power, and God swore. It's the end of that pasuk. God swore by saying the word right hand, who is saying the word left hand. So we see that the word right and left have in Chumash, in Tanakh, can sometimes be an obscure synonym for the word swearing. So that's why it's not an associated word, but it's an exact word. And that's why Rabbi Yochanan did not like Rosh Lakish's understanding of Rameir, and then he gave a new interpretation of Rameir, that when a person says, Arei Laitzi Parim, and there's a Nazir walking in front of him, by saying, I want to take upon myself birds, he's basically saying, I want to take on the risk of becoming a Nazir, which will have a risk associated with it, that if I become Tameh, I will be required to bring birds. And that's why Rameir said, if someone says, Harei Laitzi Parim, I want to take upon myself birds, he is going to become a Nazir. Okay, we will stop right here.